like you. Just a few simple words bound two people for a lifetime. What seemed like an ordinary love turned out to be a luxury most people could never have. Carl and Ellie had just gotten married when they moved into the broken-down wooden house where they first met as children. They didn't even have time to take off their wedding clothes before starting repairs, moving the sofa together, designing a mailbox together, turning the shabby old house into a fairy tale home. It was beautiful. Ever since childhood, Ellie had dreamed of going to Paradise Falls in South America. She became a tour guide at a South America-themed park, and Carl sold balloons nearby. Though they lived humbly, they created the most beautiful version of love. They would lie on the lawn and imagine their future, having a bunch of kids, painting the nursery in fairy tale colors. But one day, lightning struck their little home. Ellie was told she couldn't have children. Carl was heartbroken seeing her so down. He handed her a notebook they had kept since childhood, full of their dreams, the biggest one being a home near Paradise Falls. So they transformed the nursery into a dream room and began saving for their dream trip. But life got in the way. A flat tire today, a broken leg tomorrow, maybe a storm-damaged house. Again and again, they had to break open the dream fund. Even so, they loved life. Every time Carl went out, Ellie helped him with his tie, a simple habit they repeated for decades, never getting tired of it. Time passed and they both grew old and gray, but still deeply loved each other, selling balloons, dancing, cleaning the house together, and always smiling at one another. One day, Carl picked up a childhood photo of Ellie and realized he had never helped her fulfill their dream. He felt guilty and immediately bought tickets to Paradise Falls. But just then, Ellie fell ill and couldn't go. She handed Carl the dream notebook. It was their most precious treasure. She hoped he would keep it safe. Not long after, Ellie passed away. Carl sat alone in the church where they were married, his world drained of all color. He ate alone, walked downstairs alone, cleaned windows alone. When students came for charity work, he ignored them. He sat by his door watching the demolition crew tear things down, sometimes yelling at them through a megaphone. His house was the last one left. His neighbors had all moved out, but he stubbornly refused to leave. The house held all the beautiful memories of him and Ellie. With no legal reason, the developers couldn't force him out. Until one day, a worker knocked over his mailbox. Carl lost it and hit him with his cane. That gave the developers an excuse. They claimed Carl had mental issues and needed care, so the court ordered him to move to a retirement home. Carl panicked. "What should I do, Ellie?" He picked up the dream notebook again. Remembering Ellie's frizzy hair and missing tooth, her blushing face when she held his hand, how they hid under blankets to share secrets. Everything that mattered happened in that house. He looked at a picture of Paradise Falls, made a cross over his chest, and remembered his promise to Ellie. He knew what he had to do. The next day, when the staff came to take him away, Carl distracted them with a suitcase. Then, thousands of helium balloons rose from behind the house. The whole house lifted into the sky. Carl was flying the house to Paradise Falls, their unfinished dream. He used curtains as sails and steered the wind manually. The house floated over green fields. Ellie, we're on our way. Carl checked the ropes. Every sound was music to his ears. He sat back and rested, hoping to wake up at the falls. Suddenly, a knock on the door startled him. Was it a dream? He ignored it, but it came again. Annoyed, he opened the door. It was Russell, the boy doing charity work. Desperate for his Help the Elderly badge, Russell had snuck aboard. Carl reluctantly let him in, but Russell wouldn't stop touching everything and asking questions. Carl was so annoyed. They passed a skyscraper, and Carl tried to send Russell home by lowering him with cloth, but Russell was too heavy and it was too dangerous. No choice. Carl cut off some balloon strings to lower the altitude. Then they hit a storm cloud full of thunder and lightning. The house shook violently. Russell nearly fell trying to save his backpack. Carl's biggest concern was Ellie's photo. They barely survived. After that, Carl decided he had to get Russell back to the ground. He released more balloons and the house descended into a foggy canyon. It crashed, throwing both of them out. Carl grabbed a water pipe, and with Russell's help, they stopped at the cliff edge. Russell wasn't just a nuisance, he could save lives too. As the fog lifted, they saw Paradise Falls across the canyon, but the house was too far to reach. So they dragged it around manually. Not far in, Russell was exhausted, not just tired, but also needing the toilet. He grabbed his tools and ran into the forest. "Mr. Fredrickson, should I dig first or poop first?" Carl didn't answer. He buried the evidence, showing he had manners. He even ate chocolate afterwards, only to find a giant bird begging for a bite. Russell named it Kevin and took it along. Soon they met a talking dog named Doug, who was actually sent to catch Kevin. But Doug liked Carl and decided to follow him. Carl noticed the balloons were deflating. They had to hurry. Suddenly, a pack of dogs attacked. Carl had to drag the house into a narrow gorge. Then, a massive cave, and the dogs surrounded them. Their owner appeared, Charles Muntz, the legendary explorer. Carl and Ellie had idolized him as kids. At first, it was a warm welcome, but soon Charles revealed his intent to hunt Kevin and hinted he'd killed other explorers. Carl panicked. His idol was now a villain. Carl, Russell, and Kevin fled. Balloons popped. The house almost fell. Doug pushed rocks to stop the dogs. They reached the other side of the cliff using the house's momentum. But Kevin got hurt. Russell wanted to take her home. Carl was torn. His dream was right there, but Kevin had helped him. In the end, he chose to help Kevin. They left at night to avoid Charles. Unaware, Doug's collar had a tracker. Charles caught up and captured Kevin. He set Carl's house on fire. Balloons popped. Carl rushed to save the house. Russell, helpless, watched Kevin being taken. He scolded Carl for giving up. Carl said nothing. A child couldn't understand his grief. That night, Carl silently pulled his house forward, alone under the stars. And maybe, in that quiet night, something in you stirred too. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of love, of dreams left unfinished, or of someone you once promised the world, then don't let this moment fade. Like this video to honor the dreamers, share it with someone who still believes, and subscribe to Movie X for more stories that touch the soul, because some stories are worth remembering.